right.
All right,
Here we go.
Get loose
Hey, Sam,
here a little bit. Get
Sam,
loose.
Throw me that Georgia helmet.
Oh, yeah. Get loose
Throw
a
me that
little
Georgia
bit here.
helmet.
Do your stretches.
They get to be on the desk by themselves.
Oh.
They get to be up there by themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Here, can I have that?
Here you go, buddy.
Oh, my goodness. So, gang, let me tell you, Michigan obviously lost, if you haven't heard by now. They lost 34-11 to the Georgia Bulldogs. Man, Braylon, I'm going to get you first crack at this thing.
Man.
A lot of people wanted to hear your analysis. Maybe some wanted to hear about mine. I will tell you, though, in this game, it was one of the worst officiated games I'm kidding.
You better stop it. They're going to take that small little sound bite and they're going to loop it.
Right, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go for it, man.
Yeah, my big thing is, like I told you, I'm not a fan of analytics. I think in the first fourth down that we got our first possession, which is after they scored on their first possession. They went down the field, ran up the middle. It didn't seem like we had anything going on the defensive interior because they ran right up the middle on us. And then they made some big plays. Daxton Hill, who was a guy that you didn't know if he had COVID, you didn't know if he was under some type of disciplinary actions while he got there late. He didn't play the first 3 or 4 series, I want to say, for Michigan, and it showed they were out of pocket. But their tight end, Brock Bowers, man, he's a man. He's a man-child. Reminds me of a George Kittle. In fact, I think he pretty much is a George Kittle-type tight end. So they had a really good first drive. Michigan gets down to the 40. This is when it started, though. Like, you ready for this? This is when it started to me. First play of the game, Vastardis jumps offside.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it, I said, you know what, that's going to be a problem. Because Vastardis had his hand in the ground, and he saw that big man named Jordan Davis put his hand in the ground, and he jumped before they were even in a set motion. He jumped because he knew he had to get a jump on the gun. He had to get a jump because Jordan Davis was a big man, strong, powerful man. So that started kind of, man, here we go. You get to the fourth down, and as opposed to punting it, you're on the 40. You're on their 40.
4th and 4 at the 41.
Yes, at the 41. You're on Georgia's 41. Punt. This is where I'm going to start the conversation. Punt. You have the 4th-ranked defense in the country. You have David Ojabo. You have Aiden Hutchinson. You've legitimately given yourself a chance to get some field position, win a field position battle. They haven't proven on offense that they're world beaters. Stetson Bennett hasn't proven that he's a guy that's going 95. Their running backs are by-committee running backs now. We saw how good they were in the game. But at this particular moment, you know that the tight end is the player. Outside of that, they have some guys that haven't really necessarily stepped up yet. Why go for it? Now you go for it. Now you don't get it. Now you put Georgia comfortable in a sudden change position on the 41. After they've already scored on you, they went down the field and proven they can score on you. Now you put them at the 40. You shorten the field, and they score 3 plays later. Now it's 14-0. Now they never recovered, and they played panic football. And then you saw Georgia be faster than Michigan. You saw with Blake Corum. They tried to throw Blake Corum a swing pass to the sideline. You saw Nakobe Dean look like Usain Bolt going field to field, getting him in the backfield. Try to throw him a little toss sweep in the backfield to the left. Jordan Davis, 350 pounds, 6'5". You wouldn't have known it by how fast he got to Blake Corum in that backfield. They dominated up front in defensive line to the offensive line early on in the game. They didn't. My problem with Michigan is they didn't use Hassan Haskins in the first 5-6 series. They all was Donovan Edwards, and it also was Blake Corum. Blake Corum, you saw early on, the stuff that usually works for Blake Corum when we play against Ohio State, when you play against Iowa, when you play against Indiana, that stuff wasn't working early. Got to get away from it. You got to go to your bigger back. You got to make the game a little bit easier. Got to get down the field, not lateral in the backfield. They're the SEC for a reason. Now, they may have had an average year in the SEC. Them jokers can run. They always have been able to run. This is another thing we talked about. You talked about if Cade McNamara struggles in the first half, will he be loyal and stay with Cade, or will he pull the trigger and go to J.J. McCarthy? You saw what happened with Nick Saban, with Jalen Hurts, and Tua in the national championship game against Georgia. Jalen Hurts has struggled in the SEC championship. He put it in his mental Rolodex. Jalen Hurts struggled in the first half, and he benched him and put Tua in. Same thing happened with Cade. Cade looked bad in the first half of the Iowa game. Outside of the running game, outside of the trick plays, K looked average. Missed a lot of throws, a lot of passes he left out there. A lot of times he took the sack when he didn't have to. Same what he did in this game. Took some sacks when he didn't have to. You got to pull the trigger on it early in the game, put J.J. McCarthy in. I think that gives you the best opportunity to win games. You saw the pass that he put in there against 3 people to Eric All. Is one of the best passes I've seen this year. At the end of the day, Michigan played a team that was better on that day. I think Georgia is if Michigan were at their best, Georgia was at their best. I think Georgia's still a little bit above Michigan. I think the speed came in. Getting down 14 to zip didn't hurt. Because you look at the second half, they only scored twice.
Once, I think.
They scored once.
Yeah.
They scored once in the second half. Michigan got stops. Michigan got the stops necessary. You throw the interception in the first half in the red zone, then you throw the pop-up interception again where you can't make plays like that. I haven't seen K throw a pass like that since early on in the season. It was frustration. It was the frustration of not being able to get to where you want to be, not being able to understand how fast this team is, not being able to have played speed and the team like this all season. You saw the frustration. Last thing I'm going to say is, because we'll get to how good the season was later. We can do that tomorrow. This is about they lost, so they got to take their lumps. With Georgia and Michigan, man, you just watching the game, and finally, like Michigan all season, you're wondering, where's their star wide receiver? Like, they didn't have one. They were a by-committee type wide receiver. Where's, like, the star quarterback that can make that play? Well, you got a game manager. You got a guy to get it done. He got it done all season. Finally, they got to a game where they needed a stud wide receiver, and they just didn't have it.
You needed Ronnie Bell.
They needed Ryan, or they needed to put Andrew Anthony in the game.
Right.
Because I don't know why they won't play Andrew Anthony, but you needed a Ronnie Bell, or you needed a stud, and you did, or you needed a quarterback that's a Bryce Young, that's a C.J. Stroud, that's one of those type quarterbacks, and you didn't have that either, or because you didn't want to put J.J. McCarthy in. It caught up to you, and Georgia, once they got a 14-zip, they pretty much treated Michigan like we treated Iowa. Once we got up on Iowa in the Big Ten Championship, man, we just had our fun with it.
I mean, they punched us right in the mouth from the get-go.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, Michigan just couldn't recover. And look, Georgia was the better football team. They were the faster football team. I don't think Michigan knew what to do with Georgia's speed. And one thing that you have said, and your dad has said, Stan Edwards, from the first week we were on here on the air back in August, was how does Michigan compete with Ohio State? And not only how does Michigan compete with Ohio State, how did there become so much separation between Michigan and Ohio State over the years?
5 letters.
Speed. Speed, speed, speed. Georgia had it, and Michigan didn't. And that is one thing that slowly but surely Michigan is improving upon.
Yeah.
I mean, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, some of these guys, J.J. McCarthy. I mean, we saw him get away from a sure sack at one point that he spinned out of in the second half of that game. And look, this is one of those things that happens. Sometimes there's teams that are just better than you. And Georgia is better than Michigan. I completely underestimated, and I don't think I'm the only one, but I completely underestimated how good Georgia was. I think because the way they lost, got manhandled by Alabama in the SEC championship game. And I think if you look at their schedule, go look at Georgia's schedule. They didn't play anybody this year. I think Kentucky was maybe the best team that they played all year. They didn't play anybody.
One of the other things, too, that doesn't show in the stats that we saw once you play the game and you see Dalvin Cook's brother, James Cook, you see Zamir Rice, you see when you were going into this game, you didn't see a ton of stats from the wide receivers. You didn't see 1,100 and 1,200 and 1,300. You didn't see 15 touchdowns from this wide receiver. You didn't see 1,600 rushing yards like they've had before when they've had Sony Michel and they had Nick Chubb and they've had DeAndre Swift and they've had Todd Gurley. You didn't see a ton of stats that jumped out at you. Even Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett had less passing yards than Cade McNamara, although he had more touchdowns and 3 more interceptions. So it's easy to look at that and say, you know what? These guys don't necessarily ball and go out there and kill, but you know what you don't see in those stats? You know what they don't show you? They don't show you that the defense is so good that they're winning the field position battle. They're usually getting the ball at midfield, and they're going in and scoring. They haven't had a lot of time for those individuals to get receiving yards, to get rushing yards, because they're always at the 50, because they're always at the 40, because of how good and dominant that defense is. So that, yes, the Alabama game did give us a sliver of hope, but they went in there, they knew what the game was. And also the biggest thing for me, Ryan, you saw the inexperience versus the experience. Georgia has been in the playoffs before. Georgia has been to the national championship. This team, there's players on this team that were there when they lost to Alabama. They remember how bad it felt, how bad it stuck. They've been to the playoff multiple times. They know how to prepare. They know in those moments, like, when not to overreact. They know when not to just let it subside, be smooth. I love Michigan. I love the way they played this year, but they have not been in that moment, and it is an experience, and it is not uncommon because there have been 11 blowouts in the semifinals since they've entered the playoffs. It's not uncommon for the teams that aren't used to it to get blown out. And they did get blown out.
Phillips here. Kentucky? Arkansas was number 8 when they smoked them. Clemson was down to number 2 when they beat them. Don't look at the rankings.
Where are they now?
Yeah, don't look at the rankings. Clemson was number 2 when they beat them. Clemson was terrible this year.
Iowa was if you want to play that game, Iowa was number 2 this year at one point.
Right. I mean, Clemson was
game.
terrible this year.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Don't give me the Clemson stuff. Clemson couldn't score a point. If I'm not saying that I'm a better quarterback than the one they had, but Clemson was no good. And Arkansas, number 8, Arkansas. What did Arkansas finish with this year? Arkansas finished 9-4. That's some awesome season. I mean, no offense. Who's the best quarterback? I mean, seriously, Georgia.
Ole Miss, probably Matt Corral.
I mean, they didn't play Ole Miss, did they? Let me see. I don't think they played Ole Miss. I got to find this out real quick. Hold on.
Best quarterback they played was the SEC championship.
They did not play Ole Miss this year.
Yeah.
So
the best quarterback they would have played was Bryce Young, but that was at the end of the season.
Yeah. Best quarterback they played, Bryce Young, although I do like the kid from Tennessee, Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. That was a good game.
41-17. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sue me. I didn't think Georgia was as good as they were.
I knew Georgia was a good football team. We did our homework. Yeah. We knew Georgia was a good football program. I just knew Georgia hadn't seen anything like what Michigan had to offer. And then Michigan, they went out there and they didn't present their best product. Let's call a spade a spade. They got beat by a better team, but Michigan did not present its best product.
I will make a couple of excuses for Michigan. I will do that next. Ermanni and Edwards.
I'm staying away from the excuses. Woodward Sports Network, the bottom line. You've reached the end of the video. You know what you should do? Press like. You know you like the content that we have here at Woodward Sports Network. I'm Braylon Edwards from the bottom line. Subscribe to us right now.